Okay. I'm going to need you to state your first and last name and spell both your first and your last name.
My name is Zonjanice Jacobs. That's X as in XYZ, ONJENES as in Sam E. And my last name is Jacobs, JACOBS.
And how do you know Darryl Cearnel?
Darryl's my baby brother.
Okay. And describe for the court your brother, Darryl Cearnel, from your perspective.
I'm going to try my best to do this without crying because this is very difficult, and that this has been a quite humbling experience for our family because this is just not anything that we've ever done. Darryl is my brother. Darryl is the father to my beautiful niece. Darryl is my mother's son. Darryl is kind-hearted. He is smart. He's helpful, sometimes to his own detriment. He's caring for others and passionate about living life and being who he is.
Okay, so you would certainly describe your brother as a responsible person.
Absolutely.
And somebody who cares about others.
Absolutely. Throughout Darryl's life, he's always consistently been caring for others. At one point, we used to make a running joke that my mom's house was like a halfway house because every time I come home from college, there's always a new person in the house, and I'm trying to figure out where all these people are coming from. And it would always be someone else that Darryl says, well, his mom, would put him out, or, their family had a fire, or, they don't know how they're going to make their next month's rent. And, Darryl would always say, well, Mom, can we bring them in? And Mom, can they have the room? And Darryl always would give of himself. When Darryl decided that he wanted to graduate from high school, he had so many different options. So originally, Mom always said you either had to go to the service or you had to go to college. Darryl elected to do neither. And he was like, well, I'm going to just go ahead and go do the EMT school or do firefighter school. And he did it. And he's always been responsible. Even while doing that, he worked at the post office. Darryl's worked at bounce houses. Darryl's done so many different things and always held a job. Even after the incident and being removed from school, Darryl went and found employment in Tallahassee because he said, I still want to finish, I still want to do, and I need to be responsible because I have a child that I need to take care of. So Darryl worked as a janitor during this time because he couldn't get any other opportunities.
Okay, so during the time that this case was actually going on, Darryl was working as a janitor? Yes. Okay, and you mentioned that he has a daughter.
He does. He has a beautiful 5-year-old niece, and it's the truth and nothing but the truth that she's gorgeous. He has a 5-year-old daughter named Imani Scott Cearnel.
Okay. So you sounds like from listening to you, you described Darryl as somebody who's always being responsible.
Yes.
And you mentioned that he had actually gone to EMT and firefighter school.
Yes.
And he actually became a firefighter.
He did not become a firefighter. He completed the school and got the certification, but at the time he wanted to remain in Miami due to just wanting to be close to the family. And because Miami wasn't quite hiring at the time, he didn't want to, get on with the firefighter school, so he elected to go to college.
Okay. And that college was, of course, FAMU?
It's FAMU against my better, suggestions.
All right. Now, you and I have had some communication with respect to potentially things that Darryl may be able to do to help him transition should the court decide to show him some leniency here. Can you just tell the court some of the things that you've done and what you've communicated to me?
Absolutely. Your Honor, if I may. Over the course of the past 5 years, I volunteered my time and services with a program in Hillsborough County that helps to work with individuals who are incarcerated and also those who are being recently released from incarceration. This past year, they started the Ready for Work program, which is funded through a grant through the state that offers program for 6 weeks to individuals who are being recently released from incarceration, and partners with a number of agencies and organizations in order to get them jobs following their release from incarceration. One of the things that I've had the opportunity to see, and sad and unfortunate in the same right, is that individuals who are released from incarceration generally do not have many opportunities to utilize their degrees or any other additional skill sets that they may have, because typically, as has been stated before, they have to select felony on their record if they have been convicted of anything. And at this juncture, of course, us already knowing that he has been convicted of something, this would be something that he'd have to check. By working with these different programs, it allows them the opportunity to have a direct connection to different organizations that may be able to utilize his skill sets, and so that he can continue to be a productive citizen and person in the community.
Okay, and did you also research some of those potential places that might actually be in South Florida?
Yes, there's a program that's in Miami-Dade County. I don't want to be misquoted, but it may be Stop the Violence in Miami, and then there's also a Broward County reentry.
Could I ask you just to do one thing, and that's slow down just a tad.
I'm so
you
sorry.
Speak very. You don't have anything to apologize. I speak quickly myself, but we do have a court reporter here who is. We just need to be considerate of her.
Sure
so
thing.
Slow
Would you
down
like
just
me
a
to
little bit.
Back it up a little bit for you?
No, she's gotten everything so far, but she's racing along. So if you would just slow down a bit.
Sure thing. There's a program in Miami-Dade County that also has a reentry component to it, as well as Broward County. They also have a reentry program. What my family and I have discussed in light of the situation is that in hopes that if there is leniency or the opportunity to have probation or parole or be able to just come home, because Darryl, does have responsibilities and that he does have a child that he has to care for, that these would be prospective options. And if I may at this time, I'd like to extend my condolences to the Champion family. As a mother, I can only imagine just what you could be feeling losing a child. I have 2 boys myself, and I have hopes for their future, and I just don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's around the corner. Do know that we do share in your loss. To the judge, I just want to petition on behalf of my brother. I don't know what lies ahead for Darryl. I have hopes and desires for his future, and I know that he does as well. In spite of the entire situation, our family, as you well know, has already been stated, we've grown up in church, but as you become older, you gain your own personal relationship with God. In this humbling time, I've had to go and see my brother, something that I never, ever said that I would do, even with working with the programs for 5 years. That's kind of the running joke with our program. I said, I'll hook up everything for you, but I'm not going to the jail. I found myself sitting there, waiting in the visitation center, waiting to see my brother, in shock and in awe, because this is now my life. In this time, I've seen tremendous growth in Darryl. I've seen Darryl transform as a man. I've seen Darryl transform in his relationship with God. And I've seen that there's a new light and a new path. And one thing that Darryl told me in the last time that I visited him, the Saturday before Father's Day, is that no matter which way it goes, he's going to be okay, because he knows that God has it.
Okay. I don't have anything further on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Your Honor, at this time I would call Deswin Matthews. All right, we need you to state your name and spell your first and last name.
Okay, my name is Deswin Matthews, DeswinMathews.
Okay, and do you know Darryl Cearnel?
Yes, Darryl is my boyfriend.
And how long have you known Darryl Cearnel?
I've known Darryl for about 4 years.
Okay, and where'd you meet Darryl?
I met Darryl on the campus of Florida A&M University at the band room. I was a member of the Marching 100 as well.
Okay. So tell me, or tell the court, I should say, about the Darryl Cearnel that you know.
The Darryl Cearnel that I know is caring. He's always willing to help. He's volunteered with his Masonic Lodge. He's also volunteered at my school. I'm a kindergarten teacher. So he plays Santa. You know, time came for gifts to come. All right, I have some people that might be on my naughty list. Maybe I need to call Santa. So we'll call Santa. They love Darryl. They're always asking, where's Santa? Where's Santa? He's volunteered and helped with field day at my school. He's always giving. That's Darryl. He's giving. He's supportive. He's kind. He's mild-mannered. He's just the way he carries himself is just like, wow, he just grabs your attention. He commands your attention. That's just the type of person that he is.
Okay. Now, you've heard me ask some of the other witnesses earlier, should the court consider showing Darryl some leniency, would you be one of those people who would be a part of his support system should the court decide to do something like that?
Yes, definitely. I've been there from the beginning, all the way through from him being removed from school. He has had to. In order for him to get back in school, he was required to do a few things. He was required to do anger management courses and also community service, and he's gone above and beyond the required amount of hours for community service to get back and be reinstated in school. So I would definitely help in that manner.
Okay. Is your understanding, you're aware that in fact Darryl Cearnel was actually allowed to return to school at Florida A&M University, correct?
Yes, he was.
And in fact, he was enrolled and taking courses up until the very day that this trial occurred,
yes,
right?
He was actually due to graduate on August 7th.
Okay. So despite everything that was going on at the time, he was still trying to continue to better himself. Yes,
his main focus was to finish school so that he could provide for his daughter. That was his main focus at the time, to finish school so that he could provide and do the things that he couldn't do while he was in school for his daughter. That was his main focus.
Okay, so it's fair to say that you would clearly describe Darryl Cearnel as somebody who's responsible.
Yes.
And caring.
Yes.
And to a large degree loyal as well, right?
Very loyal.
Okay. And I don't think I have anything else. No questions.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. My next witness would be Ms. Taloria McPhee Johnson. Okay, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and spell your first and last names as well, so we can make sure we get it correct.
My name is Taloria McPhee Johnson, Tayloria. Last name MC, P as in Peter, HEE -Johnson, JOHNSON.
Okay, and how do you know Darryl Cearnel?
Darryl is my son.
Okay. Tell the court about your son, Darryl Cearnel.
Before I address the court on my son Darryl, to the Champion family, I do offer my most sincere sympathy in your loss in this instant case. My son Darryl is a wonderful child, was a wonderful child. Darryl is a wonderful young man now. Darryl was easy raising. Darryl was easy growing up. Darryl was a very easygoing child. We had no issues. He's wonderful. I love him. He's mine. I love my child. And he's gave me no problems.
Okay, tell the court a little bit about the early part of Darryl's life. Where was he born, for instance?
Darryl was born in Rota, Spain. I and his father were both active duty military. We transferred to Washington, D.C. At that time, I was scheduled to deploy to the Persian Gulf, being active duty, and I brought my kids home to my sisters, who assisted in getting them to and from school and was raising them while I was serving my country.
Okay. By the way, the majority of your family was living in Miami?
Yes, except for one sister. She was married to a military man, and they were at that time in the Philippines.
Okay. So the time frame that you're referring to when you brought Darryl to Miami, he was around a lot of his immediate family?
Correct.
Okay. Tell me about, or I should say tell the court about, Darryl's, I guess, middle school kind of transition to high school years. Tell the court about the kind of child that he was.
Darryl was a very special child. As you've heard, Darryl was with the St. Agnes Progressive Band. I'll back up. When we got back to the United States and we moved to Miami, Darryl, we used to go to church, and being away, you don't find many African Orthodox churches. So we attended Baptist and just different churches. So when we got home, they had never seen an acolyte. And he was like, I want to be one of Father Carey's boys. And it just went from there, from being one of Father Carey's boys. And at that time, Reverend Deacon Brown was the senior acolyte. He took them under their wings. And they wanted to hang with Donnie. And I'd be like, Donnie, I'm so sorry. I was like, you can send them home anytime. I know you don't need this extra baggage. But the boys would love to be with him, and he would take them. And Donnie at that time was a member of the Progressive Band. And we passionately call him Uncle Bert, who's now deceased. Uncle Bert asked my boys, did they want to participate? And he gave Darryl a drum. And he said, you just got to hit this drum just like this. And he gave him a rhythm. And there was just one incident where Darryl had to carry the whole band because none of the other drummers showed up. But he said, I can do it. He said, we don't have to cancel. And he couldn't have been more than 9 or 10. And he just was committed. So when he's committed, he's in it. And that type of resilience went through. And as my sister stated, in middle school, he was with the high school band. And it was like, we get ready, the band's getting ready to leave. And they're like, we can't leave. We're waiting for Darryl. And they were like, well, why is Darryl late? And they didn't even realize, because of his talent, that he was in middle school. And so it was just, he was amazing. And he helps people with the music. He loves music. He's just that person giving of himself.
Okay. Now, we've heard before that Darryl has a young daughter, Imani, right?
Correct. Imani Sky is my granddaughter.
How would you describe Darryl's relationship with his daughter, Imani?
Darryl's relationship with Imani is a good relationship. It's a healthy relationship, although he's been away in school. Now with him having been incarcerated, we've had to explain to her that her dad is away, and right now that there's a possibility that he could go away for a while. And, it's hard because kids need their parents. I know we're in a generation now where you typically don't have both parents in the home, but although he's not with her mother anymore, he still needs to be available to be in her life, to be able to play the role that he does play in her life. He, paid for her school. She was in Beacon Hill Preparatory School, where she achieved the principal's honor roll. And this is a great beginning for her. She's 5 years old, and she's going to the first grade. So she's a very smart kid. And it would break my heart more just to see him not be able to be a part of her life and what I consider the developmental years of her life.
Okay. Would it be fair to say, other than obviously this particular event, that you've had no issues and or problems with Darryl as both a child and as an adult?
No, I've never had any issues with Darryl. There's no seal records as a juvenile. There's no issues of any sort with Darryl.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the court?
I would. Again, to the Champion family, my condolences. In Your Honor, I understand that by a jury of his peers, my son has been found guilty of manslaughter and of felony hazing. But I beg of you, of the courts, to consider my son's character. This, and I know the impact of losing a child is awful, but this is losing a child as well, because it takes him away from his daughter. It takes him away from his family. It takes him away from a lot of the dreams that he has had growing up where he saw his life. It's going to take away a lot of opportunities to begin with by just for the fact of having a felony charge on his record. But my son is worth saving. I believe my son is worth me fighting for. And I just ask of you to please not throw him away. I understand the need to try to right a wrong that has happened. But I just don't think that my son or these kids, for that matter of fact, should be thrown away. They were in college they were all in college trying to do something positive with their lives. They weren't out hanging on the corners or selling drugs. They were out trying to make themselves better as a person. And I just think that whereas as his mother, I will always love him. I will always build him up, and I try to make him believe that this is not the end of his future. I plead with you to just have some leniency with the sentencing. We worked hard. We researched to find programs so he could still be able to be that father to his daughter, because he needs to be that. He just really needs to be that. She needs her dad. Her mom is wonderful. I take nothing away from her. But little girls need their fathers.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
No questions.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if I may indulge the court, I don't intend to call these other individuals just because I don't think it would be somewhat repetitive, but if the court will allow me, I would like to at least announce their presence on the record.
Certainly.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I have Ms. Muriel Solomon. His aunt is here as well in support of Mr. Cearnel. Tamia Henson, who's a friend. Tiffany Schultz, who's also a friend of his. Darryl Cufferson, who's a deacon from his church as well. Renard Blackwood, who's a member of his lodge. Cameron Jenkins, who's also a member of his lodge. Brayon Glenn, who's also a member of his lodge. Byron Brown, who's also a member of his lodge. His brother, also Christopher Cearnel, is here as well. Kenny Sparks, who's also a member of his lodge, is here. Mr. Dante Douglas, who's a member of the lodge, is also here. Another friend, Miss Marie Rogers, is here. A friend, Mr. Adrian Green, is here. Miss Jessica Jenkins is here, who's also a friend. Nicole Harris, who's a friend. Miss Jennifer Baker. Miss Kendra Moore. Miss Danae Glenn. And those are just some other individuals, Your Honor. I'm sorry, and his father as well, Mr. Donnie Cornell is also here. I just wanted to make sure the court is aware that those people are here, and they obviously support Mr. Cornell. And the last person I'll call is Darryl Cearnel, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to need you to state your name for the record and then spell your last name, okay?
Darryl Anthony Cearnel, last name Cearnel.
Okay. Now, Darryl, you grew up where? I should say, where did you graduate high school?
Miami New Orleans Senior High School.
Okay, and after high school, what did you do?
I went to the Miami-Dade College Fire Academy because I wanted to be a firefighter. And I did that in January 2006. And I graduated from the Firefighter Academy as a certified firefighter in the state of Florida in March of 2006. And after then, I went to EMT school at Miami-Dade College, and I passed the class. I guess I wasn't serious enough in paying attention. I actually lost contact with my instructors in regards to taking my examination to be certified as an EMT. And so I ended up taking my test for the EMT certification a year later. And because I hadn't been up on my books, I was still working, doing things of that nature. I didn't pass the test because I still wasn't up. It was a year. I ended up taking the certification test a year later after I graduated the class. So I didn't pass. But I did try to become a firefighter in the state of Florida. I went up and down Florida, driving my own car to different counties and trying to be employed. And I did fine on the physical exams. It's just that in regards to employment, it's like a ranking. Pretty much if you have military background, you were first pick. If you were paramedic certified, then second, EMT certified, and third. And me not knowing, even though I was a certified firefighter, that still put me on the bottom of the totem pole as pick. So
Okay. And at some point, you made a decision to attend FAMU?
yes, sir.
Okay, and then you, obviously, you joined the band.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, after After this incident, or I should say, when this incident happened, you were suspended from school, right?
Yes, sir. I was initially suspended for school for 5 years, and I appealed. I appealed that because I knew what I did and didn't do,
Okay.
and that's just the truth. And I appealed it with an attorney that I had. I had a different attorney at the time, and I got the appeal down to 3 years.
Could you speak up just a little bit, Mr. Cearnel? I'm
I
having trouble.
appealed the initial suspension from school. It was 5 years, and I appealed it, and I got it down to 3 years. And then some other things that were brought to my attention in regards to the way people were being treated in regards to the situation. Just being honest, everyone wasn't treated the same. And for something that I knew I hadn't done, I stood up for myself.
Okay.
And so when I went to go appeal again, it was too late. So I sat out for 3 years, and I got back in school.
When did you get back in school?
Quickly, our character was just slandered.
Was what?
Slandered for one incident. No one's perfect. None of us are perfect, though we strive to be at sometimes. And we all fall short. But for the percussion section, the logic was, in order to, drive the car, you had to get your license. And so we call getting your license the actual crossing bus C. So that's what that was. That's the significance for people who are actually members of the percussion section for wanting to do bus C. It was a section thing. That's what we did, or that's what was done. So that was the whole thing about it. For people who weren't members of the percussion section, the question still out there. Okay, well, if you don't, in our percussion section, why you want to do bus C? Why would you want to get beat? Why would you want people to just beat on you all the time if that's all we did? Because that's not what people saw. Like I said before, we were friends. We would consider each other family members. People saw the chants that we said on the field during practice to keep enthusiastic atmosphere on the practice field. People heard the songs that we used to sing. We used to pretty much remix any song just to have fun. There was a camaraderie with the bussy. And I'm not at all saying that in retrospect that this is okay. I'm just explaining why it was what it was. Back then, what the mentality was, why we thought the way we thought. Because in our eyes, with this whole thing going on, the worst thing would have never happened. Had I known that someone could have lost their life crossing bus C, I never would have done it, to be honest. But everybody who told me about hazing, don't haze, don't do this, don't do that, I couldn't relate to them. Just being honest. Everyone says, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, but I never did it. But I've been in this band, I've done this before, but you don't do it. Had I had someone I could probably relate to, another student, to probably tell me, listen, I've done this, I've hazed, I've been hazed, and this happened. Don't do it. It might have been more impactful. Because at that time, you're not listening, you're not necessarily taking everything into consideration that people who you can't relate to are saying. But when you look at your peers, and I'm not saying necessarily peer pressure because we're all individuals, but when you look at what majority of people are doing and no one's getting hurt, in your mind you think, okay, well, I can do it too, and I'll be fine. No one ever lost their life before, and I can look at the people who went through bus C before me and they were walking around fine. So in my mind, okay, well, whatever it is, it can't be that bad. But we never thought that this would have happened. Since this incident took place, it's been hard. I've been found guilty of manslaughter and felony hazing resulting in death. Had I known or had I felt that I needed to say something before, especially during the trial, I would have. But honestly speaking, I have no problem taking responsibility for my actions at all. That's just the type of person I am. If I do something, then I'm willing to take responsibility for it, wherever my actions are. But I truthfully knew what I did, and I know what I did and did not do. I knew before coming to trial what was going to be said about me because I had read depositions. I knew. And at the same time, as I saw friends turned against each other or say things about each other out of fear, I saw what was said against me. And I knew the lie when I saw it.
And you knew, I'm sorry.
I knew the lie when I saw it. And when I sat here in trial, I didn't feel the need to say anything. I know, Judge, you asked me, if I had opportunity to speak, and I declined because I heard what was said. And out of all the witnesses, there was one individual who incriminated me. And he lied. And it came out that he lied. So in my mind, when I heard my attorney stand up and say, clearly these witnesses lied, and the state even agreed that all the witnesses that took the stand had lied, and I still was found guilty, I was at a loss because I tried to save a man's life. And I understand that I was present, but without any theory or thought or principle that may be applied or used to try to get someone to blame for a situation, the fact of the matter would be that my presence and my actions on performing CPR on a young man and giving my cell phone to call the police for a situation when I saw someone in distress did not cause harm to anybody. And I know it's hard for people to try to understand that. And I'm not at all am I saying that, anything about co-defendants. I'm not trying to make anybody seem worse. But nobody else can say that. Nobody. Nobody can say that they try to save a man's life. And I'm not better than anybody, but that's just me. That's what I did. And what makes it even harder, Your Honor, in just all honesty, I was charged a year later than everybody.
I'm sorry.
I was charged a year later than everybody for the situation.
A year later.
And with that, I was charged with another individual who was present on the bus. There's no arguing that. I'm not arguing that I was present. Who at some point in time, someone said something negative against him, hence the reason why he was charged. But this individual called the police. And either his punishment or his reward was his freedom. For all charges were dropped against him. He didn't have to come to court, testify as a witness or anything. But this individual who called 911 did what I told him to do. I asked two people, one being Jonathan Boyce, told him to call the police. Say he didn't have a cell phone. I looked to the next person. I told him to call the police. He said he didn't have a cell phone. I took out my cell phone and gave it to him. I also told him to go see if they had an AED, an automated external defibrillator, inside the hotel while I performed CPR on Mr. Champion and waited for the police to get there. But I'm being charged to the full. I was tried to the fullest extent of the law. And the thing that ran in my mind the whole time was sitting here doing trial. I listened, and the state stand was that just us being present makes everybody responsible. Someone else's kick is my kick. Someone else's punch is my punch, even if I didn't physically touch Mr. Champion. But then I asked myself, how can you truly believe that and say that everyone is treated equally in this situation when a person who did the same thing that I did tried to assist and save a man's life and called 911 after I told him to, you prosecute me to the fullest extent, but yet let this man go. And I'm not saying he's wrong, but if we did the same exact thing, what made us different? And I just asked the court to take that into consideration, because if his actions led him to be free and he only did what I told him to do, why am I different? I don't understand that, Your Honor. And truthfully, one good thing, one great thing, in all honesty, has happened while I've been incarcerated for the past 60 days. And that's that I honestly grew closer to God. My family has sat up here, and it was hard. It's hard listening without getting emotional, because I love my family. I know they love me, and I appreciate their support in everything that I do. It's just that I wish I never would need their support in a situation like this. And I grew up in the church, but when I prayed, I used to pray. I used to go to church even when this situation happened, while I was in school away, and I thought I was doing enough. You know, to be honest, I thought I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm going to heaven because I go to church and I pray this, that, and the third. And for a month and a half, sitting inside protective custody, when you're locked up for 23 hours a day, you have 1 hour to come out to shower, use the phone, or just sit around in the day room and watch TV. I've been reading the Bible from front to back. I started before this whole situation even happened, and I finished the first 2 books, but now I've made it to the New Testament. But nonetheless, I still thought, okay, well, I'm doing good. You know, I got God first, and He's with me, and I felt better. I felt good about the situation, even though it wasn't looking good. Just honestly speaking, you know, I'm a convicted felon for the rest of my life, and I can't change that. Even though I know I didn't cause harm to this individual who lost his life, but yet I tried to save his life, and I'm still in this situation. But nonetheless, I kept my faith. And the option came with us who were kept back there in protective custody to move out of their dorm or that pod to a Christian dorm. So we jumped on the opportunity up there inside the Christian dorm. This has been the first time in my life that for myself, I understood what I truly should be doing to get closer to God and guarantee my seat and my resting place inside heaven. That's the best thing that has happened to me in this whole situation. And the reason why I say that is because you've heard the testimonies from people who've known me since I was born, and you've had the letters of people who wrote character references on my behalf, and they truly know me. They know the individual that I am. And even though all those letters pretty much say I'm a good person, I'm a great person, I'm caring, kind, gentle, this, that, and the third, I know I'm better than I was before this whole situation happened. I'm not the same individual I was, and I wasn't wild. I wasn't out there robbing people, smoking weed, or doing obnoxious things, illegal things besides, you know, this whole incident that has taken place. But I'm better than that because I know I've got God, and I know God's got me. And that's why I'm able to tell my family, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. I know I'm going to be okay. But I had to say this because it's I know the criminal justice system is supposed to be punitive at times, and punishment needs to be dispersed for people's actions. But I ask you to judge me for my actions, for my factual actions of what I actually did, not of a theory or a principle that may be used to try to hold me liable for other things or other people's actions. And I'm not slandering anybody. I'm just being truthful. I'm an individual. And none of these gentlemen I have anything negative to say about, because I know them. They're young boys to me. Even though we're all in our 20s, these are good men. Mr. Champion was a good man. This was just an accident that no one thought would ever happen. And one other thing I would like to say, Your Honor, is that while I was incarcerated, I was told I had an attorney visit. So I walked out, and there's these two white males. One had on a suit, and the other one had on a T-shirt and jeans. And so they said, your attorney's here. So I'm looking at both of them like, okay. So I was put inside a room with the man with the jeans and the T-shirt on. And we sat down and looked at him. And he said, my name is David Clindenberg. I said, okay. He said, I'm a probation officer. I said, okay. He said, well, the judge ordered me to do a probation investigation to see whether or not she should grant you a probation or whatever. So I was like, okay. So he started asking me questions about myself, and I answered them. He asked me if I had kids or, this, that, and the third, where I went to school. Everything he asked me was just about me. My siblings, what I did for a living, did I pay for my child's education, rent, whatever. And everything he asked me was about me. And I answered him, truthfully. And then he goes to ask me, he said, well, is there anything that I want to say to the judge? So I hesitated for a moment because I didn't feel comfortable because my attorney wasn't there. I hadn't spoken to him like, should I talk to this guy? Even though he told me he's a probation officer. It's a touchy situation, a topic to talk about. And so he said, well, most people wait to say whatever they have to say in front of the judge because it sounds more personable. And I said, okay, well, I'll do that. He asked me if I had any questions for him, and I asked him honestly. I said, are you only asking me these questions because it's your job, as in it's just routine, or is there truly a possibility that I could be granted probation? So he told me, well, only thing he can do is ask these questions, do his investigation. He'll verify whether or not what I said was truthful or not, which will go to my character. If I lied, then it's like, I don't have good character, this, that, and the third. And so then he had me sign the paper saying that everything I told him was true. And he made sure I gave him the correct contact information, for my parents to verify everything. So no problem. And that was it. Then later on, a couple of weeks later, I get a call. Well, I made a call. And I was told that it was suggested by the probation officer that I get 9 years in prison because I wasn't remorseful. And when I got a chance to read the investigation form, the first thing that came to my mind was, out of 28 years of my life, a stranger who I don't know had about 15 to 20 minutes to sum me up and build a report about my character and what type of person I was. And though his suggestion was mind-bothering, two words that he used to characterize me were that I was polite and truthful. The reason that made me feel a lot better about this situation is that this man didn't know me from scratch. He doesn't know who I am. And even though he asked me about my tattoo, and I told him, it's my daughter's name, Imani Sky, and I took off my blues and showed it to him, and I told him it's written inside clouds. He even wrote on the paper that my daughter's name was written with clowns around it. But he got two things right. I am polite, and I am truthful. And those are the same characteristics that everyone else who knows me stood up here or sat up here and said, because that's the person that I am. And I just ask that you take that into consideration. In regards to being remorseful, Your Honor, I went and I grabbed a dictionary. I'm just being honest, because in my mind, I kind of had I know what the word remorse means and what remorseful means. So I just wanted to double check to make sure I had the correct meaning before I said anything about it in general. And when I thought about what remorseful means, it deals with guilt and feeling bad for your actions. When I was a kid, my mom... we weren't going to break whatever she said we were going to break. But if we did, we felt bad about it because we knew that we had done something that caused for that thing that she tried to keep from happening to actually happen. And for that, things of that nature, things that I've actually done and can look back and say that I feel bad about what I did because of what the outcome was, I'm remorseful for things of that nature. And I can't lie. When I'm asked, am I remorseful about my actions in regards to the situation? I'm not remorseful because the simple fact that I tried to save a man's life. And every time I think back about it, had I not given my cell phone a call, who would have? When would somebody have been called to try to revive Mr. Champion? If I hadn't tried to perform CPR on Mr. Champion, who would have? And I don't feel bad about that. I'm bothered that I had to do it in a situation like that because that was a friend, someone I considered a family member, and I never want to have to do it again. But I do not feel bad about trying to assist and save somebody's life. But I wish this whole situation never happened. So when I was asked about remorse, that would have been my answer. And Your Honor, I just ask that you take everything that you've heard today, from not just today, but actually from the beginning of this whole trial period in regards to me. Because at the end, I can only speak for myself, but I know that my co-defendants, I know what type of gentlemen they are, and they're good men. I don't have a bad thing to say about any one of them. And I pray for everybody in this situation. I pray for the Champion family. I continuously pray for your family, as well as I pray for mine, and I thank everybody who came out to support me. Thank you.
Mr. Cearnel, you spoke some time ago about your feelings about the band and about hazing, and you made a comment about if you had known that something like this could happen, you never would have participated in hazing. Did I hear you correctly?
Correct.
Did you know that you could go to jail for hazing? Was that explained to you by anyone, the university or anyone else?
May I ask a question? Are you looking for?
I suppose.
Are you looking for a yes or no answer, or may I answer for you?
Answer as completely as you want, perhaps a little more briefly than
no problem.
20 minutes, but go ahead.
In regards to hazing, when it was spoke about inside the form of a band, in our minds, hazing is doing something to people who you have authority over. Say, for instance, freshmen. And the reason why we say that is because freshmen, in a sense, they're new. They know nothing. They do what they're told to do, and that's it. If I tell a freshman to stand still or to march, they're going to do it because they don't know any better. But when we deal with people who let's say equals, upperclassmen, we're all on the same level. Anything that you do at that point in time, you're not the same as someone who didn't know. And things that you did together, we didn't consider that hazing. We didn't, because no one was forced. When I think of hazing, I think of something that was forced upon someone who you have advantage over.
So it was your opinion that the activity, let me go back, the descriptions of what crossing bus C is, were those accurate?
Excuse me?
The descriptions in trial about what the process of crossing bus C is, were those accurate?
Not completely.
Okay, where were they inaccurate?
Where it's portrayed that all we do on bus C is beat each other.
Well, I was more specifically talking about the three levels: the hot seat, the prepping, and the crossing. Were those actual 3 parts of that ritual?
Yes, sir.
And did each of those rituals involve striking or landing blows on the individual?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, is it your testimony that you believed that that ritual was not a violation of law?
Back then?
Back then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it your belief also that that ritual was not a violation of school rules?
Back then? Yes, sir.
So you believe that that ritual could be performed in public in the view of faculty without any adverse result. Is that your testimony?
If I may.
You may.
I'm a member of different organizations, and just honestly speaking, from my personal experience, and I'm not trying to be funny, but there are several things that aren't necessarily done inside public, but are done inside private places that, ritualistically speaking or traditionally speaking, that aren't necessarily considered unlawful. But with the mindset that I had back then, no, sir, I wouldn't have said it was illegal. I wouldn't have thought we were hazing, because it wasn't like, had we pulled a freshman on the bus who had no reason to be there, I definitely feel totally different about the situation. Now, I'm not saying I don't feel bad about it. Right. Hands down, I feel bad about whatever happened, because at the end of the day, like I say, that's a family member, that is a friend who has lost a life. Now, in retrospect, I don't think the same way I thought back then.
So if we could have gotten the message to you as a freshman at FAMU about what tasing truly is, you would not have participated in this, would you?
If someone had related to me
right
back then, like as I stated before, someone other than people say, oh, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, da, 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 da. You can't, when people, if I can relate with you, and that's just, if someone can say, hey, listen, I've done this, I did this, and I'm telling you, don't do it, and I still did it, then that's a totally different situation.
So what I'm trying to get at is, tell us how we, as a criminal justice system, can get the message across to you as a freshman end this. How do we get that message to you?
Sir, the best option, and I'm just being honest, the best option, you take these individuals, myself, Mr. McNamee, Mr. Golson, and you put us back out there. Charge us with the task of going back out there and talking to these individuals, giving our personal testimony about, listen, even if you're there and you don't necessarily participate, this can happen to you. Because, like I say, for the rest of my life, I'm walking around with this badge of dishonor. Even though I try to save a man's life, I'm still a convicted felon. No one, yourself, no one else thought anything different of me than people who already knew me. You know? And so, and I'm not the only one person being punished for this. I have a 5-year-old daughter that I can possibly be without for years. I haven't seen my daughter in over 2 months. And the first time I see her is in the court in shackles.
Now, would you agree that the fear of imprisonment might drive that message home a bit stronger?
Not necessarily.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cearnel. Do you have any other witnesses, Mr. Britt? All right. Why don't we take a brief recess, about 15 minutes.
All right.